Welcome, everyone. I'm Justin Silverman of the New England First Amendment Coalition. Thank you for joining us for another 30-minute skills. As a reminder, links to all of our 30-minute skills are available at nefac.org/30-minute skills. They include data cleaning, privacy law, Microsoft Excel basics, how to diversify sources, and how to protect yourself as a journalist, among many other topics. You'll also find at nefac.org a growing list of upcoming presentations and events focused on the First Amendment and journalism. Nearly all of them are free and open to the public, so please check them out and consider joining us. Today, we'll be continuing our discussion on data visualization with a new lesson on how to use Flourish. If you haven't already, please watch our Data Visualization 101 lesson, though it's not required for this class. What is required for this class is a free account with Flourish and the 3 data sets sent to you when you registered for this lesson. I'll provide links in the chat to those data sets if you need them. And if you're viewing this lesson as a recording, links to Flourish and those data sets can be found in the video notes. We have a lot to cover and not a lot of time, so let's get started. Maggie, all yours.
I'm Maggie Mulvihill. I teach journalism at Boston University. And I'm also a board member for NEFAC. So welcome to this session on how to use Flourish. What we're going to cover today is just the basics of Flourish, how to make a chloropleth map in Flourish, how to make a searchable database in Flourish. And I also included some slides at the end of the presentation if you want to learn how to make a bar chart. So the most important thing is that you do have a free account with Flourish and that you've downloaded the 3 data sets I sent to you through Justin. The first one is a heart disease data. The second one is Vermont state employees. And then the last one is Massachusetts tax delinquents. That's a bonus lesson for you on making a bar chart. So Flourish is a free data visualization tool that you can use to make simple but really, really nice visualizations without knowing how to code. And lots of journalists and organizations use Flourish. You can upload your own data. You can bring data in from URLs. There's lots and lots of templates on Flourish for making all kinds of different visualizations. We're just going to cover 2 today. I did put a link in the slides for some practice data sets for you if you want to experiment with those. So the first thing that we're going to do is make what's called a chloropleth map in Flourish with the heart disease data that I sent to you. So make sure you have that downloaded. And before you make a map, you have to really think about whether or not your story and what you're trying to convey to your readers and your viewers has a geographic element to it, a strong geographic element to it that would make it easier to understand if there were a map. Just don't make a map just because you have data with latitude and longitude or some kind of geospatial element to it, because we've all seen lots of bad maps, that especially with election stories that are really hard to understand. So really think about not only what you're trying to convey to your readers and viewers, but what data within the data set is the best data to represent the story. We're going to experiment with that a little bit with the map that we're going to make. A chloropleth map is a map that's part of the projection map set of templates in Flourish, and it shades regions or geographic elements based on to stressing different points. So you'll see when we make this heart disease data map, we're going to look at where the most deaths are occurring in the US states. So go ahead and open up that heart disease data set. And we always do with any data set, what I teach my students at BU is we do a 4 corners check. This is an Excel file, it's a CSV file, comma separated file. And there's, I believe, 53 rows in it, including the header row. So you always want to look at your data first to understand the 4 corners of it. What do you have? We only have a couple of columns here. It's not that complicated of a data set, and information about heart disease deaths in each US state. And this is where you have to think about what's the right data that I should visualize in my map, because we don't want to visualize all of these columns. We have total deaths, we have population, and then we have rate of deaths per 10,000 people, as well as some codes that the US government gives the states, the census area, the state name, the state number. So go ahead. The first thing I want you to do is to log into Flourish. And once you log in, you'll get, if you've done a bunch of visualizations, which I have, you'll see all of your projects on the screen. You go ahead and click New Visualization. And then scroll down the screen to, there's a lot of templates here. So scroll all the way down till you find Projection Map. And then there's a bunch of templates under Projection Map. You want to click on US states. That's the template that we're going to use that Flourish offers. And I'll explain now, these templates that Flourish offers have dummy data built into them, partly to show you the structure of the data you should be using for that template. So this template here, this US states template, think of this as like a blank canvas that has the borders of all the 50 US states. And we're going to use this to layer our heart disease data on top of to build our map. We're actually going to clear out the dummy data that's in here, which we don't need, and bring our own data in. But it's giving us the boundaries of the US states. So if you are looking at that template, you automatically go into the preview mode. I want you to click over to the data mode at the top of the screen. And you'll see there's 4 sheets in that data mode, that data option. One's called regions, region geometry, points, and lines. And we're going to go through those one by one, just so you understand what you have when you use this particular template. So again, this is default data that's built in that we're going to clear out. This isn't the data that we're going to map. So if you click on the region sheet, you'll see the FIPS code, which is a code the government gives each state, the postal code, the name of the state. Now I want you to click on the region's geometry sheet, the next sheet. And what you have to understand when you're mapping is that the region sheet and the region's geometry sheet have to be able to talk to each other through this region geometry key. All that means is that there's a common value that exists in both of those sheets so that they can link together. The common value we're going to use is the state name. But there has to be a way for those 2 sheets to communicate with each other. So this is what the region sheet looks like. It has the state name, it has the postal code, it has a visual depiction of the state, it has the FIPS code. So that's the region geometry sheet. Now I want you to click over to the point sheet. And again, this is dummy data. So this data represents something different than what we're going to do. This represents the highest peak in each state and the elevation. And it's just showing you all the different points that you could visualize if you wanted to. And we're going to put our own data in here, so you're going to see a different set of points. So that's the point sheet. And then these are the points that we're going to visualize, our heart disease deaths, once we upload it. And then the last sheet is called the line sheet. And there's nothing here, but this could be used if you wanted to plot some sort of line on your map, like a railway line or bridge line or some other kind of line. But we're not going to use this today, but that's what that sheet represents if you were going to use it. So at the very top of your screen, go ahead and give your visualization a name. You want to stay really organized so you don't confuse any of your visualizations, especially if you start to make a lot of visualizations. So I gave it this name. You guys can name it whatever you want, but just give it a name. And then make sure you're in your region sheet. And if you click the down arrow in your region sheet, you'll see a couple of options. I want you to choose clear sheet. So take away all that stuff that's already there about the elevations. And then go over to the upload data option and click on that. And we're going to upload our heart disease death data. So once you click on that and make sure you're in the region sheet, you'll see that Flourish has found the file that it needs, gives you a preview of 53 rows. Yes, that's correct. And go ahead and import that into Flourish. Now, Flourish tries to guess what you want to visualize. It doesn't always guess right. So if you can see my slides, it's made a map for us, which is a really bad map. Everything is light blue. It's colored by a bunch of different columns, which is not what we want. If you see on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the section of Flourish that's called the column bindings. Basically, all that means is that it's where we tell Flourish what we want it to visualize. And color by is where we want it to color a particular column to stress the importance of that data. So you have to bind your columns. And again, all that means is you have to tell Flourish what you want it to visualize by putting the appropriate column letters in these different options: ID, name, label, color by. So we're going to make some adjustments here. And you can see if you go to preview, you're always toggling between preview and data. At the top of your screen, you can see a bigger view of this really bad map in which it visualized stuff that doesn't really make sense. So we're going to change that. So again, focus on the column bindings area on the right. If you click on data at the top of your screen, you'll get back to the data area that you need to be in. And you can also toggle between the region sheet and the region's geometry sheet to see that there is a common value, so the sheets can talk to each other. So there's a couple common values, but state name is one of the column values. On our region sheet, that's in column A. And in our region geometry sheet, that's column D. All right, so turn your focus over to the right-hand side of the screen, the column bindings area, and go ahead to the option called color by and just delete the letters that are in that color by section. We're not going to visualize multiple letters here. We're just going to visualize one column. And let's visualize by total deaths. So in the color by option, enter the column F, which is the total deaths in our data. And let's take a look at that. So now if you click on preview at the top of your screen, you'll see your map. And you'll see that California, Texas, New York, Florida have the highest number of deaths. But this is where thinking about what's the right data to visualize comes into play, because if we go back to our data and we look at column G population, we see that those states which we probably already knew, have the highest population. So naturally, they're going to have more deaths. So that's really not a fair representation of the story. We want to actually be visualizing by a different column, which is column H. So go ahead and change, go back to data and go ahead and change color by to column H. And now if you go to the preview, it automatically, number one, it automatically saves your work as you do it, and it automatically generates a visualization, which we can look at under the preview option. So now we see a completely different representation of the data, where Alabama and Mississippi have the highest number of deaths per 10,000 people, which is a much different story that we're telling here. Go back to the data view at the top of the screen, and we're going to make some adjustments here to our other bindings. If you hovered over these states in the preview option, you would see just a bunch of numbers. And we want to be able to see the state names. So we're going to change the names and the labels in our visualization and our column bindings. So in the name option on the right-hand side, go ahead and enter the letter A, because that's the state name in our region sheet. And go ahead and enter A in the label option. And now if we go back to preview and look at our visualization, we see all the state names appearing above the state, as well as if you hover over each state, you'll see the rate of deaths per 10,000 people. We can also change the color of our map. Again, go back to the data option and scroll down to the regions layer on the right. You'll see a lot of different options here, and you can do a lot of customization of your map. If you scroll down to palettes, you'll see that the blues are chosen. The default is blue, and you can change the color here. And I changed mine to red, I believe. I chose red to represent heart disease deaths. So if you go back to preview, you'll see your color has changed. And we don't have time to get into all the other customization that you can do in the columns binding area. You can do some customization under the preview option as well as under the data option. But you always want to add a legend explaining, the title of your visualization, your map, a header, a footer. And it's very intuitive. So if you just click on those options, you can make all the different changes that you want. Okay. All right. To get back to the Home tab, we're going to go ahead and make a searchable database now. You just click, if you always want to go back and get to a visualization, a new visualization option, you click on the Home tab. So go ahead and do that. Your map is automatically saved. It's going to be in your projects. And now we're going to learn how to create a searchable database in Flourish. So click on New Visualization. And now I want you to scroll down to Table, which is pretty far down. It's one of the templates that's pretty far down on the screen once you're on the New Visualization page. And there's a couple of different options. There's Default, which is really for smaller data sets, a bingo card, which I've never used, and then the searchable database, which is what we're going to use. And at the end of this presentation, there's some information, more information about Flourish, including the amount of data that each template can handle. So you can take a look at that. But why don't you go ahead and click on Searchable Database. And a searchable database will pop up that has dummy data or default data in it. This happens to be the state birds and the capital of each state. And you see the column bindings area on the right-hand side. You're automatically put into the preview option. And we're going to toggle between data and preview. So here we're going to create a searchable database of Vermont state employees' compensation. So let's first give our data visualization a name. I've called it Vermont State Employee Compensation. And then Flourish automatically, like I said, decides what it's going to do with the data that you upload. Here, it's telling us that it has visualized all the columns in this data set, this dummy data set that it has. And we may not want to visualize all of our columns. So let's clear this sheet because we're going to upload our data. So click on the data option, the down arrow, and clear that sheet. And then we're going to upload our Vermont salary data, which is a much larger data set than the one we mapped. I think it's 50,000 records, which really isn't even that big, but it's just bigger than the one that we used to make a map. So you have a clear sheet here. There's only one sheet, and we're going to go ahead and upload our Vermont state employee data. So click on Upload, find your file, and import it. So there's 15 columns and almost 51,000 records or rows, including the header row. And this is 2 years worth of Vermont state employee pay, including overtime. It's not just straight salary. There's some other additional information here. And this is from the State of Vermont website. So you should see that your data is importing. And we want to set our column bindings. We may not want to visualize everything. There might be codes or things that our readers or viewers don't need that we don't need to visualize. Flourish has guessed that we want to visualize columns A through O, but you can select the columns that you want. For example, we might not want to visualize this column N, multiple record. I don't even know what that means. Flourish has visualized it. So if you click on Preview, you can see the visualization, your searchable database here, but we can make these adjustments. So with Flourish, if you want to visualize columns consecutively, you put a hyphen in between them. If you want to visualize non-consecutive columns, you're going to use a comma. So I don't want to visualize column C here. So I enter in my table values, visualize column A hyphen B, and then a comma, and then D through whatever else you want to visualize. You can make that choice yourself, but that's how you adjust the columns here for visualization. And this table values, if you click on the question mark, you can see the types of data it takes. It takes text data, character data, dates, and numbers. And you have to pay attention to that when you're working with Flourish because some of the column bindings won't take numbers, they'll only take text. It gives you a little visual here to show you what kinds of data it accepts. Okay, and then if you click on preview, you'll see what your searchable database looks like. And you can make a lot of other adjustments. Under the preview tab, you can also make adjustments under the data tab. You're going to do all that adjusting on the right-hand side. If you wanted to change the color or the font, you could go down to layout and make some adjustments there, put things in bold, change the type of the font. I made a bunch of different adjustments on mine, a different font, different colors. This is what my final searchable database looked like once I made those adjustments. And of course, you always want to give a very clear title and header and footer. And in the footer option in your column bindings, you can put the URL of the source data, the original source of the data. So if people wanted to look at the original data on the government website, they could just go to that. And now if you're ready, if you're all done with all your customization, you can do a couple of things. You can create a story. If you click on create a story, you can put multiple slides in a story of different visualizations. If you want to share that with an editor or something, or a producer, or you could download the HTML or a visual, an image, or you could export and publish and also get an embed code for your website. So just go ahead and click export and publish, and your visualization will be published. We're not going to go into making a bar chart in Flourish, but I just want to show you that I did give you some data here. This is Massachusetts tax delinquents, both people and businesses in Massachusetts. This is from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue who owe a lot in back taxes. And most states would have something similar. I just grabbed the ones from Massachusetts, and I put some slides in here if you wanted to learn how to make a bar chart. And you can follow along with these. And then at the end of the presentation, there's some more information about Flourish and what the different premium option gives you if you wanted to pay for it. So that's at the end of this presentation. So it's step by step, and you ought to be able to just follow along if you wanted to teach yourself.
Maggie, want to thank you again for providing this lesson. Very helpful, super valuable skills. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks everybody. Good luck.
Yep, good luck to everybody. And as a reminder, again, before you take off, just remember this is the second lesson that we're providing on data visualization. You'll find links to the first among many other skills at nefac.org/30-minute skills. So thank you all again for being here today and joining us. We'll see you next month for our next 30-minute skills. Take care, everyone.
Take care, guys. Bye.